Okay, Anthony, you fire away now. Fire away. What do you want to tell us?
I was just feeding off. I noticed you were doing some research this morning into the connections with people in the court system and the associated private corporations. So you were looking who is the shareholders, and I think one of the things you said was the Julian Assange prison, which is in Belmarsh or something.
Yeah.
Is all run by IT companies.
Yeah.
Companies that look like they got IT names. So we were talking about it, and you kept digging and digging and finding out that these companies got shareholders.
Yeah.
Which are other companies, and other companies. So so behind all this, there must be some individuals,
Yeah.
which women, Oh, somebody keeps trying to call me at the same time. Yeah, so this is what it is. The shareholders and shareholders in the prison service, Mighty, the company, and you came up with some lots of names. And why is IT companies involved to such a high degree?
Yeah.
So tell me some of what you found, Neelu.
Yeah, so this company is called Sopra 30 or something, and SSCL, and they've been going since 1968 and 69. So they merged, they're EU companies, and they're based in Hemel Hempstead, Syria, Sopra Syria. And basically, they're telling me that I can't speak to the governor of Belmarsh Prison
Right.
to demand Julian Assange's release. Anyone can phone any prison and demand somebody's release if they're being kept as a hostage and a political prisoner. So the reason why they've kept him there is because there's no liability on Belmarsh Prison because they've subcontracted their services to these private companies. So when you phone them, they pretend that they're just telephone services, but they're not. They're actually remedy denial services. But we're surrounded when we want our remedies, they're denied to us. Yet, I've got another bailiff letter here. Yesterday, they still want that council tax that they owe themselves, Redbridge. So they come in. This is the, when they break your door and they take your children, they take your cars, they take your homes. When it's they use police, they use criminals, they get everything that they want, but we can't get anything. That's Newlands again, and they're coming. This is the final notice. We've got the old house that they stole. They stole my house at Threefield Drive, and that's what they're coming for. So in this matter is already in the magistrates' court, but they don't care. They're not. This is sheer treasonous crime, isn't it? So why is it that it works for them, it doesn't work for us? That's the question.
Yeah, I mean, why can't you phone up and speak to someone, or the manager, the CEOs? They get paid a very large sum of money. One of the reasons for that is they bear the responsibility. So what seems to be happening is they're taking the money, but they're not taking the responsibility.
Well, they're taking the, it's a one-way system, isn't it? That they're taking the public money for running the prison. They're putting in whistleblowers and political prisoners and using it as a money laundering thing. So it's a slave market where they've got Julian Assange. Who's going to bid for him? How much money are we going to get from Donald Trump to keep him there? And, it's all what is it? It's a slave market, isn't it? The modern day slave market.
It's the highest bidder, maybe. I don't know. I don't know how their remuneration system works, but you know, having been through it myself and been in Wormwood Scrubs prison, being kidnapped and held there under the, you know, the pretense that I was a legitimate prisoner. There was no there was no court order or anything like that, no prosecution, no nothing. So I've been through it, and I've been taken in their vans, I think about 4 or 5 times. And I wrote a letter to the chief executive of Circle, asking him, you know, can you give me the authority on which you transported me in your service? A very polite letter, nothing, you know, untoward. I just said I want a copy of the authority. The authority must be a court order, a warrant, that, you know, which they transported you. So I get a hostile reply with a big red line running across the letter saying, don't email me again, you know. Of course, I emailed him back. I said, look, I asked you a simple question. I would kindly require an answer. You know, I need to know, and I would trust that as a responsible individual, if you found out there was something, you know, serious irregularity taking place in your organization, you would be, you know, happy to sort it out and make sure it doesn't happen again. I got another aggressive FOMO. Talk to your lawyer, blah blah blah. The lawyer doesn't know anything about it. The lawyer's just writing what lawyers do: write large letters for large fees. They don't know anything.
Yes. So what other incidents have you had, Anthony? How did your nightmare start?
Well, it's the usual, you know, property theft kind of thing. So I had a currency mortgage with a bank called Kleinwort Benson, who was a bank of Hitler. I only found out now. And I understand that Glenn Hoddle, the football manager, had a currency mortgage with them as well and was robbed. But I asked for figures. It was a big mistake I made because they were making a lot of money on my account, and I wasn't getting the money transferred, you know, or paying off my mortgage. So I asked for figures, and from there, you know, they said, well, look, under the terms and conditions of your mortgage, we can increase your rate. So they put the payment from like 2,500 a month to 10 grand a month. And then I went to my MP, Teresa Villiers, a conservative MP. And shortly after that, I read in the papers that this bank, Kleinwort Benson, donated 80 million to her party. So she had written a few letters for me, and I asked her, you know, is this donation and affecting us in any way? You're trying to assist me? And her reply was, I'm very sorry, we are not able to assist you anymore.
Yeah, I've not heard many good things about that person, because I remember her from years and years. I'm not sure if she's involved in the criminal cover-up of the paedophilia as well.
Well, it's up the road from her residence and her constituent. I believe it's in her constituency, or it's in Barnet, London. Is it in Barnet, London Borough? Yes. Yeah, so she's an MP of Chipping Barnet. So yeah, and she's a cabinet minister, and she's been there a long time, and you know, so it's a possibility. But you know, the thing is, things are being concealed, so we don't know what is what, which in itself is a very serious criminal offense to conceal information that the law requires to be available.
And the Barnet police officers, there were 2 of them. I think it was Christopher Maitland and
yeah, that name rings a bell.
Stefan Kadek. They were
Hmm.
found like 94,000 images of child porn. And they were
Yeah,
jailed 20.
but the thing is, these people were specifically given the job to protect children. This is the perverse side of it. So at, around about that time, my little child and the children of my tenants um, have all been thrown on the streets with no no procedure, no council notified of nothing, um, and so the people who are being entrusted to protect the interests of children seems to be not shy to abuse children.
Well, it's a fact, Anthony, that the child abuse investigation team, the CAPE team, they had these two police officers working there. And these two police officers are now in jail because they got caught with these images and videos, selling them all over the world, making money from them. So these children have not been identified, rescued, rehabilitated, and returned to their loving families. This is the biggest scandal in the UK. There's that website by Huyton, Huyton,
Hmm.
that I gave you that website. In it, it's got all the police officers who've been convicted of basically, rapes of underage children.
It seems to be with a certain circle of people. It seems to be um, standard procedure. I mean, I just want to mention one caveat before we go any further. That there are, I believe, a lot of good police officers in Barnet and everywhere. I think the vast majority are good people. Even when you see they're doing some wrong, you know that their heart is not in it. I think in my interview, which I called Hell in the Cell UK, there was a gentleman there, a slightly older guy, whilst this young Benjamin Cobbler kept harassing me about being a trespasser in my own home. The, the other guy, you could see his body language on the video. He totally was not in agreement. You could just tell he never wanted to be in the room. He didn't want to. But it seems to me they got somebody higher up actually forcing them to do these jobs. That this is what it seems.
Well, that's a very, very, I say kind of you, I'd say, very kind of you.
Very generous.
Because the Criminal Law Act 1967, Section 4, it says that if you know of a crime and you remain silent, you're kind of participating in its criminal. You're as guilty as a criminal because you're participating in either obstructing the remedy, or actually denying it. And so,
Yeah.
so they, if there are a lot of silent witnesses, shall we say, in position, who, if they're under duress and they're terrified of speaking out, whistleblowing, because they're afraid of losing their job, that's fine. But if they are able to speak out, because then they should speak out. If somebody comes in their face and says, "Can you help me?" they should help them and get their children back.
Well, I think it's a very very difficult situation because it's a question of force. They're calling it now a police force. It used to be a police service. Versus force, because the individuals there, they got more force, more comeback if they do the right thing than if they keep the status quo. So what is happening is that on a higher level, criminal gangs have infiltrated, and this being reported by the Independent. Uh, so I'm not just saying. The criminal gangs have infiltrated the police to such an extent that they are not freely able to do the correct thing or the lawful thing. So I remember the last time I was arrested on the 15th of May. I, I was going to the Woolwich Crown Court to assist someone, which is quite a huge crime because the council had falsified 8 liability orders, no court case number, nothing, and several warrants, which none of which exist in the court, and we had the subject request from the court which proved it's to be true. So they stopped me on the Woolwich ferry around that area, saying they were doing a terrorism check. And then, so yeah, I was on my way to this Woolwich Crown Court, which is the same, attached to it is the Belmarsh prison where Julian Assange is. I actually done a little video.
They followed you. They followed you.
Well, I'm only, you know, I'm only gonna say what I know. But the thing is, they look like they won the lottery when they saw my car, you know. And then these guys jumped in. They took my phone. I've got a video where they said to me they were taking my phone because I was videoing them. Funny enough, I was actually on the phone talking to someone else who was telling me that my nephew was arrested somewhere else. So whilst I'm live on this same conversation, they stopped me and arrested me. And when I was filming it, the officer came and grabbed the phone off my hand. This is on the video, yeah. And he said, "Give me the phone. You could hurt somebody with that."
That is ridiculous.
So they said they had a warrant. Of course, it's always a warrant. They always say they have a warrant for a debt. Now, you can't have a warrant for a debt, like a criminal warrant for a debt. A debt is a civil matter.
Exactly.
But in any case, when I spoke to them nicely, you know, tried to keep my calm and whatever. But at some point, I said to the officers, when I was in this van with handcuffs and all sorts, I said, "Are you guys debt collectors?" And they were so embarrassed because I said it nicely, you understand? I just asked them nicely, "Are you debt collectors?" And they looked at each other, they looked at me, and they answered. They said, "No." I said, "Okay, fine." And when we got to the station, I asked them for the warrant. So they showed me something on a screen. There was no court, no date, no judge, nothing of that could authenticate. And I said to the guy, "What makes this?" It's a guy called PC Hat. I said, "What makes this a warrant?" And he wouldn't give me his name. He just nodded his head like, no, like he was telling me it's not a warrant, but he wouldn't say it because it's been recorded, I guess. He nodded his head and he disappeared. He just disappeared from view. So he agreed with me that it's not a warrant. And then when I went to the court, I had a duty solicitor called Mrs. Gondia or Miss Gondia. And she told me there was no warrant. And when I had the hearing, I said, "I'm happy to pay whatever it is you want, as long as you can show me that it's valid and it's a warrant." So I think if you remember when I came out, I phoned 101 a few days later to check the incident number and so on. Because they took my car. So they checked the car, they checked the name, they checked the address, they checked the police station, they checked from every possible angle. They couldn't find any incident report, any arrest. They couldn't find nothing. There's nothing on the system. And this follows my nephew at the same time where I think it's 2 or 3 police officers came and arrested him just shortly before that. And it's the same thing. They can't find any record of it anywhere in the system. So we're just being kidnapped repeatedly and harassed, and bailiffs and police, and bailiffs and police, bailiffs and police, for the for the crime that, you know, we got a property that other people want.
So Anthony, you know, if you're getting kidnapped and terrorized, then what chance have we got? You know.
Well, you know, it's funny because I have a belief in the rule of law, and I think at certain times it's never 100%, and at certain times it gets out of hand, and at certain times the pendulum swings back. And I have a funny feeling we're just on the cusp at the moment, where the pendulum is going to swing back in favor of the rule of law, because for the simple reason it's gone too far. We got this bullshit universal credit. We got the government itself chasing after people with fake debt and fake court warrants, the government itself. So this is how far it's gone. And the public is waking up. We have the petition. That's why I have the petition, court order scams. We have that running because it's to go to the government. We're not just making noise on social media. We are, you know, putting the pressure on the government. And to my understanding, they've got some of my videos in Parliament. They've carried out a bailiff review, but they're not addressing the root of the problem. The root of the problem is the abuse of the court process. So I want to keep hammering away on this particular point, that all the people who've been, you know, when I was in prison and probation and all this, I spoke to people, I tried to help people and stuff. And nobody there very, you know, could think that they actually received a court order. And they have all these solicitors on legal aid, claiming legal aid and defending them. And they never ask or produce the court order or the warrant. Now, one day I was in Willesden Magistrates Court, and I asked the solicitor, I just pretend I was a lay person. I asked the solicitor if he was a defense lawyer, criminal defense lawyer, and he said yes. And I said, why are there no criminal offense lawyers? It's always a defense. So I said, you're defending a client, and he started talking a little bit to me. So I said, I can solve your crime easily, very easily. He said, how is that? I said, well, just ask the court or whoever, the prosecution, to produce the court order. And if they can't produce the court order, tell your client to go home.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I left the room after that, and I was with another person, and he went up to that other person, and he said to the lady, if this guy ever gets out of, get his word out there, the whole system will come down.
Exactly.
On such a simple matter, court order scam. So we want to wake the world up on this issue, because all the crimes are going on, Neelu. I'm sorry, I'm rabbiting on a little bit.
Oh, no, we've got to hear this, Anthony. Go ahead.
Yeah, you have all the various crimes. You've got the TV license, the council tax, you got debt, you got
Social service.
whatever it is, you know, utility companies, whatever it is they're running, they cannot run the scam successfully unless they had the false use of the court. Because if the TV license person said, oh, you're not paying your TV license, you said, no, I don't want to pay TV license. They said, okay, we're going to sue you for the money. It's a civil matter. So they sue you for the money, you don't pay. They could eventually go on and on and on till they bankrupt you. But they must have a contract with you. Yeah. But you don't have a contract for your TV license. No. So what they do, they go and they make up a fake claim that they have a magistrate court order to break into your home and do whatever damage to you. But when you investigate from A to Z, there can't be a court order because it's not a criminal matter. No information was laid at the court. You were not served with any proceedings. And then people get into these things, they go for a trial, they get free legal aid for a duty solicitor to help them. And the duty solicitor is playing along with the non-existent court proceeding and claiming legal aid for it. This is a huge crime.
And then,
and a constitute.
when they get the guilty plea, they pretend.
They force you to plead guilty.
Then you know, your sentence will be reduced. There's got to be a crime against that. It's extortion, isn't it?
It's a huge crime. My nephew, they told my nephew who's got mental health to plead guilty to 3 crimes, and he pleaded guilty. And all these solicitors, until I intervened, the CPS has dropped all 3 charges and offered us cost in writing.
Yeah, and this is.
And when.
Yeah, this
Sorry.
is false prosecution when he was attacked. Well, basically, was nudged by a court staff, wasn't he?
Well, the court staff can't be found. They said he assaulted a court officer, same like they did to Dragutin the other day.
Yeah, exactly.
And he said he was just walking and like the tip of his shirt in a narrow passageway brushed the lady, and they just came out all of a sudden, said he assaulted the court staff, then arrested him, locked him up. Then from the police, they took him to the mental hospital, and he spent over a year in there. And when he was in the mental hospital, they said he raped someone. So I got involved and started to ask, who did he rape? Where is his statements? Where is the prosecution? And then all of a sudden they dropped the case. Then another one was he was threatening the GP in the Neasden Health Center. And they charged him for that. He pleaded guilty. He pleaded guilty because the duty solicitor keeps saying you'll get a smaller sentence. Yeah. And when I helped him to make a complaint and asked for the report, there was no crime report. There is no prosecution. There is no nothing.
Yeah.
And they were dragging this young lad through case and threats and case, even when he's in the, they drag him back to court, said he failed to appear. That's when he was in the mental hospital where they put him. So during the time he's in the mental hospital, he failed to appear. It goes on and on and on and on. Yeah. And so many people it's happening to. Thank God, we've come this far. We're okay. We can fight. We have a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of confidence. And but Neelu, I've had over 100 of these so-called court orders and warrants and bailiffs, and not a single one. My MP wrote a letter to Susan Ackland Hood, the head of the court and the head of the Ministry of Justice, and asked her a very simple question. Please give me a copy of all the court orders against Mr. Badaloo. Simple question.
Yeah.
She wrote back and said, blah, 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 blah. I can't intervene in individual cases. So it's a case. Show me the evidence. There's a case. Because we had the same problem, and the Lord Chancellor asked the court to answer yes or no. Is there a judgment against Mr. Badaloo? And Barnet County Court replied, there is no judgment. So how did I lose my house? How did we have 16 evictions? 16, I'm only talking on 2 properties, yeah? Because I lost 4 properties. So the 2 were rented out. I'm going to leave those aside. Just where I live and another place I moved into after they took my main house. We moved into one of my flats. Just between these 2 properties, we've had 16 evictions. Not a single one is valid. And on on my wife's name, the court says there is no procedure against you. On my nephew, they said there is no procedure against you. On me, they said there is no judgment. On the tenants who were there is no nothing. But year goes by, another year, and between the police, the MP, the local authority, the court, they're all just running around in circles. But as time goes by, we're gathering more and more confessions and more evidence. So at least something is building. It has to come to an end, because even the criminal court, Neelu, has confirmed in writing that there was never any prosecution laid so against me, and they did that for my nephew. So between myself and nephew, our name is technically cleared. We got it in black and white, but we need to be compensated financially, and we need the harassment to end.
Yeah, so your case, I mean, it's a lot more serious than my case, isn't it? Because I've only had one house stolen. But it's just my timing and the numbers of people involved and the video evidence that I have. What they did, they made 4 attempts. Once, I think 2 people came, another time 3 people came. And finally, there was 22 people that came. 9 of them were police officers, the local community police officers, support officers, shall we say, and some sergeants, and so it was all orchestrated and rehearsed, and 2 prostitutes were in there. The 2 females were known prostitutes in the area. They had 2 locksmiths. One of them was a prop. And they got the poor old other guy to do the break-in with the crowbars, who didn't have any official, badges or anything. Nobody had any names. And then
Unbelievable.
The police officer, the main police officer, was called himself Sergeant Bertie. He was actually Constable Roberts from a previous arrest of mine, where I had the 6-day trial, which ended in a no case to answer. So he literally, because I won at the trial, they came to steal my house. That's the bottom line. And the Barnet is involved in that, by the way. Because
right.
All that stuff was going on in Barnet at the same time. The same police officers were involved. It's a huge scandal. One day when it comes out, Anthony, you're dealing the Barnet police, the Barnet Council and the police are basically enjoying terrorizing you, and your family and your friends. Just like Redbridge Council are loving terrorizing me. But I just see it as a divine mission. I just say, okay, do whatever you want to me, because it's not me, it's the entire hierarchy of angels in the universe are watching you. Do whatever you want to me, okay? Anyone can do anything they want to me, because I'm here for a reason, and that is for that. That is why I'm here. So I'm expecting they're going to come and break in now, because they've said
I don't think they're breaking, but anyway. Yeah, I know you've been getting roughly once a week these visits about, and nobody's signed it. No. There's not even a name there. This is an illegal. If you're running a business and you send something like this to someone, you'll be arrested immediately. Immediately.
So can they be? Should we be arresting these people?
I've heard people talk at the common law court that says sooner or later they're gonna have to start arresting these people because nobody's arresting them. The police service has failed. But I try to look for green shoots, because we saw the Barnet chief executive from the Brexit election. He was sacked for vote rigging. We saw somebody in Haringey Council, which is neighboring Barnet, was caught with a £400,000 housing benefit fraud and jailed for many, many years. and we saw Enfield, which is the other neighbor of Barnet. I think he's called John Jossa, the chief executive of the council, was caught stealing £500,000 from the council, and he got 7 years in jail. So these are kind of green shoots that, you know what, they're not totally untouchable. They are subject to the same law. They are being lucky that the enforcement of the law has not been taking place. But, you know, criminal matters have no time limit. We've seen people coming out of the Nazi war criminal era and being jailed today in their very elderly age. So once you do a crime, you can never rest. You will have no peace. So I'm a great believer, you know, that what is happening to you and me and millions of others at the moment, millions, yeah. It in a way is the law of what do you call it? Yin and yang. You know, it's time. It's a calling on us to do something. You know, I put a post up on Facebook a few days ago, and it was deleted. That for violating their policy, and I'm sure there's some malice involved. I don't know who did it, but all I said, Neelu, I only said one thing. I said when I started the petition against court order scams, the word court order scam did not exist in Google. That phrase, court order scam.
Yeah.
So I picked that word, I started to work with it because I realized that is the magic phrase. This is the big scam. And I said, now if you Google the phrase court order scam, it brings up 20 million results.
Yeah.
So that means the work we've done on the petition, I think there's 4,500 people or so have signed it so far. But the way it has spread itself and spidered into the internet and the algorithms, you got 20 million counts. So that means the work and the energy and the effort that we're putting in, it is germinating. Oh, hello to myself.
So I've been trying to get through this.
I think it's better on the phone than on the computer for some reason.
Yeah. I tried that before. Sorry.
Yeah. So the work we're doing, especially you with your live feeds and instantaneous hits, and especially you're working a lot with people on mental health. And God bless social media.
Yeah.
It is having an enormous impact. These people can't sleep at night. Once we put it out, it's true, it's correct. They can't take it down. They don't even bother to complain because it's in black and white what happened. It's there, it's documented. I think we're having a big impact, and the government is acting, but they're not acting enough, and we've got to keep pushing. And I think if we see what is happening in Hong Kong, Neelu, you see what's going on in Hong Kong?
No, I'm not. I haven't got any, like, I don't know what goes on in the world.
Well, the young people are throwing themselves to the Chinese police to be killed.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and the parents are there, you know, helpless. But this is what it is. People say, we're better off, we'd rather die than to live this kind of oppression.
Oh, no.
And it is, you know, what we're doing, we're trying to prevent things getting to that far, for the pendulum to come back into the middle, to have a balance between justice and injustice and yin and yang. I don't think we will get to 100%, but at the moment it's too corrupt.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel for the younger generations, you know, the babies and the
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I mean, children are growing up now. One of my daughter's friends called me the other day. She had 5 warrants from Marston's bailiffs. 5 warrants. I phoned the guy. I said, you know, I want to pay you, but she said I should try and negotiate something, you know, a payment and settle it, because she was scared. The guy was actually at her door 2 nights in a row, late at night, and he couldn't produce 1 out of the 5 warrants. There's a video on Anthony Badaloo YouTube channel or something. He couldn't produce a single warrant out of 5. I mean, what is this coming to?
Yeah. So Anthony, I hope we're going to carry on, you know, doing these shows regularly now, because a lot of people, just briefly, can you tell me if the same principles apply to social services stealing children?
I have helped a handful of people. It's not my specialty, but I've helped a handful of people who've had their children taken and been involved in that kind of battle. And I don't know anything about that area, but what I know, I know how to inspect computer records and court documents, and the documentation is unbelievable. It's totally unbelievable. There is a video I have on YouTube called "Fake Court, Fake Trial." Fake court, fake trial. That's about a children's case where we got the computer record. There is no claim form, there is no fee, there is no nothing, and they took this person's baby. I'm not arguing whether the baby should be taken or not. I'm not interested. That's not my. But I'm looking at the process, the due process of law.
Yeah.
You know, I've had some tenants where they've taken the children, and I don't know the wrong and right, but these people can never get the documentation to show that there was a lawful and proper procedure followed. So what it means, if the social worker or these people don't like you, or they have an interest in the financial side of it, where they will get, you know, I saw some documentation from Mr. Ebert, where one of the solicitors acting as a deputy, and this is an old case, not today's money, billed the legal aid for his services £57,000 for 1 day's work. So these people, unfortunately, got a massive financial interest to take the kids away than to leave them with the parents. So there are bad parents out there and whatever. I'm not saying, but at the same time, everyone is entitled to the proper due process of law.
Yeah, but Anthony, you know, once we've established that there are 94,000 child porn images and videos in Barnet alone, because these 2 police officers went to jail in 2017.
Yeah.
Nothing can be done to get those children from care, and those children mostly are abused in care. These are not children with parents. There's no prosecution of parents here. This is all foster parents. This is all Barnet Social Services and Barnet Council state children, and they do, let's say, do children exchanges with other boroughs. So mostly the children from Barnet will go somewhere else and they'll exchange them. So there's no liability because they've swapped them over.
Yeah, they shuffle. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It's sad. I don't know a lot about this area. I know Prince Andrew used to frequent down here, apparently, for and Princess Diana. But I have no idea. You know, I can't say. But obviously, there have been proven cases with the police who were put in charge of child protection. So
Yeah,
it doesn't.
I haven't heard anything against the thousands of babies that, like my niece, that's not come out. That, you know, the mutilation of babies and all that, all over the world, and these orphanages and these churches all over the world. So there's a lot not being put out there. And, you know, okay, Prince Andrew is standing there. He's standing, which looks like a, you know, not a child. I would say she's not a child. Someone who might want to, you know, make their own decisions. It's not as if okay, somebody lied to him about her age, maybe. You know, this is speculative about the situation, but the babies and the very young children that, you know, we've got priest Brendan Smythe, we've got priest Martin McVeigh in Northern Ireland, and they pretend that they've gone to jail, but then they surface somewhere else in the world with a different identification. And that's the problem. Nobody wants to know about those cases. So we're talking about millions of babies and millions of children.
It's horrible. It's horrible. And you know, I personally think um, the only way, or the easiest way, or the most substantive way that the public and the parents and anybody can uh, break down these crimes is in the documentation. Because everything that happens, if you run a small business, you have to record every last detail of each transaction. If somebody takes you to a legal process, everything must be documented.
But these
So,
babies, Anthony, they don't have a birth certificate. There's no.
I mean, this is unbelievable. The public, this is where the public has to step in. We can't just say this is going on. Oh my God, blah blah blah. We have to do something, and sometimes it appears like it's out of our league. It's too big a problem. But do your little bit, and everybody do a little bit. You can't believe the power that can have.
Yeah, so Anthony, you know, the mainstream media are not totally not covering any of these truth stories like yourself and myself. And all the stuff the mainstream media are putting in is recycled news that I got from archives, footage, and computer graphics, and you know, fake stories. So we're out there draining our energies on this stuff when really you are an arrowhead, an arrow tip for the bailiff situation, and everybody can benefit from watching your videos. And you know, if I can call you the bailiff hunter.
No. Well, I just asked the bailiff for the documentation. That, you know what I mean? It's a simple matter. Every legal thing is documented.
Yeah.
So whether it's bailiff or children or repossession or whatever it is, yeah, the easiest way for anybody to fight is to check the documentation, and this is what the legal profession are not doing.
So Anthony, if you were a public notice, so let's say you're giving a public notice to the legal professionals in courts, you can give notices to the bailiffs and the companies that, you know, what can they expect in the near future and distant future once we catch this out, that they've been running these court order scams for God knows how many decades now, how much property and children and cars they've stolen and auctioned, and how much terrorism they've caused. Somebody's got to be held liable for it.
Well, it comes on to enforcement. You know, there's what I call an enforcement gap. So you can find the crime, and then what can you do about it? Because you rely on the police to prosecute. I tried to get a summons. 14 times I went to court. The court even stamped it, everything done properly. They won't issue the summons. So we don't have any criminal law. All they want you to do is go to the civil court to make a civil claim, but the person gets away with the criminal aspect of it.
Yeah, one way.
We have several bailiffs that we found our clients been arrested, and then they get the charge dropped because the bailiff can't produce the warrant. But these bailiffs have had no comeback against them. They're supposed to be jailed for 7 years according to the Section 135 of the County Court Act, 1984. So we got an enforcement problem. But with the legal profession, in Section 18 of the Barristers Code of Conduct says, where there is a defect in the procedure, the barrister has to bring it up there and then. He cannot wait for an appeal or another case. He must bring it up. So I had a client called Michael Philippou who went to court, on a case where we got the printout of the court record. It is said this case doesn't exist. We got a letter from the council, from Haringey Council, in black and white, saying there is no eviction proceeding. Because when you have eviction proceedings, the council has to be notified.
Yeah.
He gave it to the barrister, and the barrister put it under the table and said, we are not using that.
Mm.
Can you imagine?
What's the punishment for that one?
It's the same, abusing the court process, but I would imagine if you're a barrister, it's an extra thing, because the problem is, Neelu, this is the problem. Imagine if the barrister got arrested for doing this, yeah? There's another problem. If you then investigate the barrister's activities in the last 10 years, the chances are he's done 1,000.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
Ah.
Precedent. Review of all cases, yeah.
You see, this is the problem, and this is why they are protecting it so hard, because if you let one through, it's a whole can of worms. But it must be cleaned out. There has to be a clearing out. And if you look at my case on the petition, scambuster.tv, you will see the number of people who are resigning. So just on my case alone, there's a big clearing out going on. And I believe if other people is having the same effect, there are other people making a great effort. I'm not the only one. There is the Tom Crawfords in this world, Anthony Carlin, Michael Obanisha, and lots of great people who are putting up a fight. Some people agree this way, but at the end of the day, a lot of people are challenging. We just had a guy called Julian Fernandez on Facebook. He saw one of my videos on YouTube called Bent Bailiff, because the bailiff's name is Mr. Bent. So I phoned him up and videoed myself talking, and I put I asked him for his full name. He wouldn't give me his name. He can't produce his warrant. He can't produce nothing. So I put the video out, and I put some write-up, and then this Julian Fernandez had a bailiff coming after him, and he called the bailiff, and he said to the bailiff, have you seen Anthony Badaloo's videos?
Yeah.
And the bailiff said, yes, I have, and I'm very concerned. And the bailiff spoke to him over an hour. And the bailiff says, I visit your house 3 times, all illegal.
Yeah.
And you can put a claim into my head office.
Yeah.
You write to my bosses, please. I am not happy with what's going on.
Yeah.
And Julian Fernandez was kind enough to write it up nicely and gave me full credit, and he put it all over the Facebook and everywhere. So it shows that, the justice is there. It can't be changed. It can't be moved. It's a solid thing. It only can be messed around for a while, but the center of gravity has to come back, to the rightful balance. So there's a lot of work going on the mortgage side of it. There's people doing a mass, Michael Obanisha mass claim for the mortgage. That's very exciting. There's Peter of England coming back with his weary bank checks, because there's crypto and all this. This fiat currency is shortly going to collapse. You've been fighting your Swiss Indo, what's it called, gold payout.
Yeah.
We're all apparently owed a bit of money on gold. So there's people pushing, and it's social media, because in the past, traditionally, they kept the lid on things by controlling the press. But the press now, a lot of people are not watching the press and media. They're watching social media like this, and it is proper raw information from the man on the street. So it's like a jury service has come back. Yeah. And as long as we use it effectively and fairly, put an honest opinion out, and educate our fellow man, and we learn from everything I say, Neelu. I learn from people, I didn't invent anything. So I learned from people. I give back, and this way, you know, people are coming out of universities with a PhD, and they don't know the basic fundamental of life.
Yeah,
You know,
because you're a very honorable person. There's not any dishonor inside your body, you know, but some people are easily corruptible. You know, people who are not smart, they get bribed, and they're ambitious, and they go up down that downward spiral with you know, like somebody was saying that the MPs, they get so much money, like they get 6 grand, 7 grand a month, plus they get 4 grand a month, their claims, their expenses. But if you're
yes,
an MEP, they get the lump sum 4,000 without any claim of expenses. So, you know, 11 grand a month is what keeps them quiet, and they just come and read the scripts. So they're not honourable people, these people in Parliament. That's why they've been removed. And we all need to join Parliament, you know, as candidates, and then we make the election fairness claim that Edward is making. And in it, he's asking for £1 million advance so we can fight our election campaigns, so that we get protection from this terrorism once we become a candidate. Well, the state is supposed to then, you know, protect you because you're a whistleblower, and protect you if you're standing for as a candidate, to get double protection. That's theory. But once we get the good people in Parliament, then we can make those demands, you know,
yeah.
the money side of it, when that comes.
I was I came across some information regarding the American situation, the American um, election and stuff, and apparently going back a few years, I don't know how many years, but it was the activist party or parties were very popular and formed the government many times because it's people who are interested in the country, interested in in you know, the just and fair running of things, that become activists. And maybe we need back some of that, like what you're saying. You know, people, everyday people, to get involved, not academic politicians who come into the business with a degree and never had any real world experience, and no connection with the communities in which they're be given a nice job. They're not from that particular community, so it's just a job.
We could start with asking them to verify their degrees, because I don't think many parliamentarians have got the degrees that they claim to have. You know,
Well, that's a whole other show. Got a degree of skepticism.
they have trouble reading scripts, Anthony. They can't even read the scripts that they're written for them, you know?
Well, my MP is a ex-barrister.
Oh, yeah.
And then, yeah, every time she writes to me, she keeps telling me, I can't talk to you about any legal matter. She actually wrote a book called The Law of Estoppel with her ex-husband or something. But I understand that 90% or 95% of all the MPs and people in the courts, well, people in the courts, they are members of the Bar Association.
Yeah.
So instead of representing the public, the government is representing the Bar Association.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So the public is paying for what they believe is something representing the public, but it's totally a bar. So anything you're doing that crosses the line of the Bar Association, what are your chances of getting anywhere with it?
No.
So this, I believe, has to be changed, because you can't have such a small group controlling 95% of the power, which the people believe is not. People are not aware this is the case. If you had on the ballot box, vote Labour, vote Conservative, or vote Bar Association, how many people would vote Bar Association?
Well, it's self-regulation, and they set up the regulatory bodies and the educational establishments. They cherry pick the talent from all over the world, the professionals, and they try to corrupt them. And then the ones that they can corrupt, they put them in these jobs, and then they don't let any honourable people in. So the honourable people
Yeah.
have been basically terrorised, and we are either homeless, ruined, terrorised, with discredit, mental health fraud, or imprisonments of criminal records. So all our mental health frauds and criminal records would have to be reversed as part of the election fairness campaign, and that's where Edward is going. Is going to make it a blanket, um, you know, zero.
Well, I don't know. Anything is possible with the right effort and input, and I don't fully understand it, but I know there was one a great activist. What's his name? Chrissy Morris. I think he's become he won the seat for a councillor now in wherever he's from, Weybridge. I think it's Weybridge or somewhere. And there's a few, and I do believe some of the people in there in the existing system mean well, but their hands are tied. We've seen Anthony Stansfield, the Thames Valley Crime Commissioner. He's doing an enormous amount of work in the financial sector, fraud and criminality. And I think we just have to push for the right thing, and things are breaking down or almost by the force of gravity. We see what's going on with Prince Andrew. All these people who had him, the royal brand on their sponsorship and charities, are now being ashamed of it. So there's a transformation. So it needs to be somebody who is connected to the issue, to the locality, to the people that get these positions, not just because you have a label which you've got no effort to create. Prince Andrew didn't create his status. It was just thrown on him. Maybe it was unfairly thrown on him, because how do you learn to handle yourself if you've never had the experience of it? You've just been thrown into a position, and the only skill you have is, how can I abuse my position? Because this is no other, you have got no other life experience.
Yeah, so I've got a couple of trolls here now. Andrew P. Ross has come along, and he's asking lots of questions here. So I'm going to, for the record, let people know that I've got.
Well,
this.
all I ask trolls is, can you tell me what is your true identity, please, sir?
Well, Andrew P. Ross that's what I've always known him as.
Well, we don't always know if that they've been using it a long time.
Yeah, he's common. So I'm going to block him, and I'm going to block the other guy, AJ.
Sometimes it's the easiest thing to do, but I like to have fun with them, because anything they say, I ask a question. You know, how if you give me 5 authentic words, I give you £1,000.
Yeah.
You know, I play games with them, but you know what? They a lot of them are, I believe, are employed by the bad guys. That's why they have so much time and money to go around the internet. I believe, Neelu, they're even setting up websites. There is a website called Freeman on Judge or something. There's a guy called what's his name? I can't remember his name. I think it's Jury, something Jury. And they just set up these sites like they're helping victims. There is one about bailiffs. I went on there, I offered some advice on some bailiff issue, and I'm being told I'm being spoken to, what do you say? disrespectfully, because I never say anything controversial. I only say you must get the documentation.
Yeah.
That's all I say with everything I do.
Yeah.
Please show me the documentation.
Well,
I've never lost an argument like that before.
so you know what, Anthony. So my wish is that we have a a website where we have all these treasonous criminals who've ever stolen a child, a car, or a home. We, when they've been caught on either CCTV or on our private cameras, that we collect the snapshots of these people and identify them and ask them to come for questioning as to produce that we're looking for this missing documents, this warrant, from the theft of my home and your property,
Yeah.
and they're wanted for questioning. So could I set up a website, say, and then people just upload these?
Well, look. There are many ideas out there, but all I'm saying is, if we want to do anything, we must think about it a little bit more deeply. We have the petition on there. On the petition, I have quite a lot of videos on the petition itself, but on the YouTube channel, Anthony Badaloo or Scambuster TV, and we put the names, we put the pictures. Some of them have a lot of views and comments. Some of them have over 1,000 comments. But generally, when we do that, the victim gets left alone. You've had some experience. I've videoed talking to the bailiffs and put it up, and they never come back to you. But it seems to be others come back.
Yeah.
But I think it's something like that. I have ideas, but probably I won't discuss it now. But I have a couple of very, very good ideas that you could probably, deal with easily.
Yeah.
But we're in a very good position, very good place. We're very confident. People are listening to us. Changes are happening. Sometimes we're not even aware of it, but changes are happening, and we've got a lot of cases that we've won, and a lot of cases they've dropped before it even goes to trial. We still get abuse and disrespect from people who should know better. But at the end of the day, there is a saying in the legal circles: if when the law is not on your side, you should bang the table. So when you're going to court and a judge is shouting and screaming and stuff, he's masking something, he's covering up something, and somebody is putting pressure on him, and this has to change.